Hey, it's Navid here, and in this session, we are going to talk about how to use AI to create and launch your first or next profitable online course. And I'm here together with the world leading expert on this topic. His name is Danny Iny. He's the founder of Mirasee. I've known Danny for I think almost 10 years or maybe even a little bit longer. That's like goes back to when I started back in 2013, and he had a different company back then. He merged into Mirasee, and he's published quite some books as well. And the latest one is a guide on the side, I believe, which covers the topic of AI and things like that. So I'm just gonna bring Danny up here so we can have him on here as well. So warm welcome, Danny.
Naveed, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So start from the beginning a little bit. Like you have been in the online course game for a while, and how does that play a role to get into the world of AI? Now you talk about this quite a bit and with Mirasee and kind of in your marketing and things like that. So I'm interested kind of hear the transition and kind of what you're working on.
Yeah, well, so I mean, I'd like to say I've been teaching about online courses since way before it was cool.
Yeah.
These days, you can't open a browser window without like bumping into an ad of like, I can teach you how to be rich with online courses. And, it's like everyone is teaching that, varying degrees of quality. But I've been doing it for, almost a decade now. To my knowledge, I'm the only person who's published multiple books on the topic. And we've had a pretty consistent approach to how you go about building online courses that are impactful, that make a difference, that justify a premium, keeping up with technology as it evolves and that kind of stuff. And then I'm a, I'm not a person who's on like the forefront of the new hot trend. I've never been on TikTok. I've never been on Instagram. I was never on Clubhouse, which was, very hot for a minute. And then, nobody remembers it existed. That's just not my thing. And so I was like, oh, this is no big deal. But I keep hearing the noise about it. And in a mastermind that I belong to, someone did a presentation about it. And I won't name names because I was not impressed with the presentation. I was actually very alarmed because he goes through this presentation. He talks about, look how I'm using AI to do all these things for me, to write comments that I can post on people's social media, to create this content, to create whole courses. And my alarm bells were just going off because, first of all, I think it's just not a good idea on a lot of different levels. And I saw more potential for damage than for benefit for the person doing it. But I also saw kind of a macro level. What happens when everyone is following this terrible advice? It actually changes the landscape. And so I did a really deep dive to understand these technologies. I'm not an AI researcher. This is not my expertise, but I know some people who have that expertise. And I sat down with them and I really dug into what is this technology? How does it work? What can you do with it? What are its limitations? And I arrived at some conclusions that are quite different from a lot of what I see, a lot of the hype out there about AI being. And I was very surprised. I just published a book with a few of my co-authors, Guide on the Side. It's about how to use AI with online courses. And I might have even said this in a video earlier in the year. It's like, look, I'm not an AI expert. I do not see myself ever like writing about this, teaching about this. And here I am, because I was like, this is just the way people are going about this is messed up and it's dangerous, really.
Yeah, no, totally. And I've seen people are advising on similar things, like create a course by just going to ChatGPT and, I mean, you can do the outline and stuff like that. I'm sure we get into how you should use it, but I think it goes a little bit too far when you're basically replacing your knowledge with the AI. So you're basically creating a course with the help of AI, and that's the entire thing. I think I mean, we can get into that. I think like, what's the pros and cons and what's the right way of actually going about this so people kind of get it. I've seen even some well-known marketers, they are like going, I think the wrong way, like that you are advising not to do, Danny. And that's not really nice to see because I see like they're pretty well-known companies as well. So what's
Mhm.
your advice on this, Danny?
It's really concerning. So to understand what to do with this and what not to do with this, you have to understand what it is, right? How does it actually work? And I'm surprised how little people still a year into this understand it. So GPT, which is not just ChatGPT, it's the whole class of large language model generative AI. GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer, which sounds like it's words in English, but they don't like make sense to people who speak English. What it basically means is that it's a statistical prediction engine. So let's relate this to something we know. What is a statistical prediction engine that we use every day? Autocomplete, right? Whether it's you're typing into your phone or you go on Google, you start typing something, it says, here are 10 examples of what you could mean next. So that's basically what all these AIs are, except they're orders of magnitude more sophisticated. So rather than giving you a few options for the next right word, they're auto-completing the entire answer to your question based on what is the statistically most likely next word in the data set that they were trained on, which is the whole internet, essentially. So it's not thinking, it's not reflecting, it's just going off of what is already kind of in the database that it can regurgitate. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but that's basically what it's doing. And this becomes really dangerous when you understand that it is not searching and retrieving information. It is not understanding your question or the answer. It's just giving you what the answer should, statistically speaking, sound like. So I have this little shtick I take people through to illustrate this. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, write me a bio of Danny Iny, right? It's like the ChatGPT equivalent of Googling yourself. So let me read to you what it said. So it comes back and it says, Danny Iny is an entrepreneur, author, and speaker who is a leading voice in the world of online education and marketing. He was born in Israel in 1980 and grew up in Montreal, Canada. Iny started his career in technology as a software developer and consultant, working with clients such as Microsoft, Google, and IBM. He later turned his attention to online education and founded his company Mirasee in 2011. In addition to running Mirasee, Iny is a popular speaker who has delivered keynote speeches at conferences around the world. Iny is also a dedicated philanthropist and serves on the board of several nonprofit organizations. He currently lives in Montreal with his wife and 3 children. So, it sounds good. It's written in kind of coherent English. It says the sort of things about me that you would expect would be true about someone in my position. Except let's unpack it. I was neither born in Israel nor was I born in 1980. I did not start my career in technology as a software developer and consultant. I've never done any work with Microsoft or IBM. I very rarely travel to speak at conferences. I give money to charity. I don't think that makes me a dedicated philanthropist. I don't serve on any nonprofit boards, and I have 2 children, not 3. Now,
This
here's
is
the real
hallucination a
problem.
little bit. Judge
Yeah,
Chat is hallucinating here. I think about it.
yeah, and I find that choice of words really interesting, right? The anthropomorphizing, right? Hallucinating. It's not hallucinating, it's making shit up.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
basically
it's
what it's
doing.
doing. Exactly.
Now, here's where this becomes really dangerous. If I'm like, I want to write a bio, I'm not sure where to start. I can ask ChatGPT for a bio. It gives me this. I correct the mistakes. I'm good to go. But if you're having me on this summit, you want to write a bio of me. So you go on ChatGPT and you ask for a bio, you're not going to know what's right and what's not right. And so you're not going to be able to fix it. And that becomes really problematic. So once you understand what it is and how it works, we can start understanding how to use it. And the mental model I like to give people is you want to think of ChatGPT as an infinitely hardworking and only reasonably competent assistant, right? It's infinitely hardworking. It's super fast. It never gets tired. It won't be offended if you say, this isn't good, do it again, but it's only reasonably competent. And so how would you work with such an assistant? And when I ask audiences that question, the answer is easy. They say 2 things. They say, I would give really specific instructions and I would check their work. And that's really the whole guideline, right? Specific instructions with AI is called prompt engineering, and we can have a long conversation about how to do that well if we want to go there. But then the second key is really important. I would always check their work, meaning don't ask it to do something that you are not already capable of and qualified to do. So if you ask it to write a lesson about something you already know, and you can say, this is right, this is not right, this I need to change, that's fine. It's saving you time. It's a first draft. If you ask it to write lessons about things you don't know, then you're in trouble because you're not going to know what's right and what's not right. You're just going to look at it and be like, well, I mean, that sounds good, I guess.
Yeah, the problem is also when you get to record these lessons. Like, I think most people could find out. Like, but it maybe are good at, learning a script or something. So maybe they wouldn't, but I think you can articulate a topic very well. I think that's the thing. So I would I would say at least that most people who do that, they are doing it completely the wrong way, and they're gonna get found out eventually. Maybe not immediately, but for sure eventually, and they will ruin their brand. So I don't know what you what you think about that, but I've seen so many people doing that lately, and especially with Amazon and ebooks. I mean, you publish a lot of books on different topics, and especially related to teaching online. And there's so many people publishing now with the help of ChatGPT, and
Mhm.
they're using this for the entire knowledge. And this gets very concerning, especially when it's related to health and things like that. And I think people have done this in the past too, but I think it's not a very good idea to just do it to make money. There's better ways, I think, to do this.
Well, I use the example of Amazon to really illustrate this point because there is a right way and a wrong way to use this. But the reality is that there's this concept called a tragedy of the commons, right? Everyone should do the right thing, but a few people won't, and they're going to end up ruining it for everyone. So,
Yes.
way back in February, like before, anyone was paying a lot of attention to this, here's the example. I used to give this on like webinars and presentations. I say, let's imagine how the sleaziest, phony internet marketer would use that. So like, here's my impersonation. I'm going to say something like this. Hey, everyone, do you want to make lots of money? Well, let me tell you how. The way you make money is by giving eager buyers what they want. And where can you find eager buyers? On Amazon. They're all there browsing all the time with their credit card already on the system. And what are they searching for? Well, they're searching for everything, including information about really obscure topics that they aren't finding good resources about. And you can help them out. Just search the categories on Amazon and find the niches that don't seem to have good books for people to buy. And that's where ChatGPT comes in. You don't have to know anything about the topic because ChatGPT does. You can have it draft an entire short book on the topic in less than an hour. And how will you know it's good information? Well, you don't, but the reader doesn't either. And really, you're helping them out because right now they aren't finding anything at all. So this will be so much better, won't it? Really, you're doing them a huge service, saving them from endless searching. And I'll say and scene. I'm like, isn't that super disturbing? But this is so we know this is happening. We know this is going to happen. You know that every industry has someone like this caricature. And just a few weeks, I saw this headline in a news site. Amazon restricts authors to self-publishing 3 books a day, a totally human amount. And I thought that was hilarious on so many levels. Because first of all, I mean, what took them so long? Like this has been going on for a long time. Second of all, how did they arrive at 3 books a day? What kind of a normal human can publish 3 books a day? Right? Like, so clearly they're still grappling with it. But the issue is that even though this is not a responsible way to use AI, it's not good for their reputation, it's not creating any lasting value, it is happening. It is flooding the market of every information product category with a ton of very mediocre stuff. And you can do everything right, but the landscape in which you're operating is still changing. And that's really frustrating for a lot of people.
No, totally. So Danny, can you tell us a little bit on how your approach to actually creating these courses? And if you know that a lot of the ways we see in the online world is the wrong way to use AI for online courses, what's kind of the right approach to doing this?
So creating online courses the right way that actually make a difference for people in their lives, that actually justify a premium, has very little to do with AI and a lot to do with how people actually learn, right? Because the learning, the impact doesn't happen in the AI or in the computer. It happens in the brain of the person who is going through the course. So we have to understand, how is it that people learn? And there are 3 steps on a learning journey. The first is when you consume new information. So you watch the video, you listen to the audio, read the text, etc. And there's value to consuming information. Information can expand your horizons about new possibilities. It can give you new knowledge you can integrate into existing expertise. But consuming information doesn't develop competence. We don't get good at things by reading about them or watching videos about them. Right? There's the scene in the Karate Kid in the beginning where he's trying to learn karate from a book and he keeps getting his butt kicked because it doesn't work. You can't learn karate from a book. And the same is true for a lot of things. So you need to integrate that new knowledge. That's the first step. You consume it. Then the second step is where you apply what you've learned. You do something with it. And that can be theoretical application, like exercises, worksheets, that sort of thing. Or it can be practical application. I'm doing things in real life in my business, in my world. And then the third step is where we iterate through feedback. And that's because the first time you do anything, you're not going to do it perfectly. You need to know what to do more of, what to do less of. You need to practice some more. And I like to joke, the good news is that there's always feedback. If I decide that I want to learn how to skateboard, I can take a skateboard, go outside, and I'll get the feedback from the concrete and gravity. It just won't be very pleasant, and it won't be very nuanced or helpful. But what a good teacher can do is give you better feedback. And that's how the learning actually happens. And what people are willing to pay for, it's not give me a bunch of information, right? Information is plentiful. There's tons of information everywhere. What they're willing to pay for is a shortcut to get to the outcome they want in less time than it would take on their own, at less cost, and with less risk of failure. And it takes these 3 steps on the learning journey. And so once you understand those steps, you can design your course around that. And then you can leverage AI, ChatGPT, for what it is, the infinitely hardworking and only reasonably competent assistant to help you on the steps. So you can say, help me outline what would go into this course. And you can say, okay, this part is good. This part is not good. Let's change this. All right, great. Let's try another version. Help me flesh this out. Okay, I'm teaching this concept. I want to give them an opportunity to apply. What are 7 different exercises that I could give them? Oh, I like number 4. Let's work on that. What are 2 others that integrate this and that component?
Yeah.
Right? It kind of becomes a thought partner, a drafting partner. It can save you a lot of time. It can accelerate your work as long as you're not asking it to do something that you don't already know how to do and are qualified and capable. An analogy I give people is to think of it that AI to knowledge workers is like power tools to a carpenter, right? The carpenter presumably knows how to do all this stuff without the power tools. They can just do it better and faster with the power tools. And by the way, they better be more careful too, because if you can do some damage with a hammer, imagine how much damage you can do with a nail gun. So it's the same thing with AI and ChatGPT.
Yeah, Danny, I sometimes give this analogy as well with the intern. When you're speaking to AI, like a lot of people expect magic coming out of it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you hire someone in your business, even a seasoned copywriter, whatever that is, could be an intern, they don't know how to write a blog post or outline a course, and just starting this process, tell them, outline this amazing course for me. They're probably not
Mm-hmm.
going to get it right the first time, but when you're iterating the process, giving more instructions, then they get it better and better. So that's the same with AI. I feel like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this as well now in the AI revolution. A lot of people are having these prompt packs left and right? And that's, I mean, you don't necessarily need that. Like, you need to learn how to speak to AI as a human, basically, and going back and forth and getting the information you need. And I think then you can, get the quiz questions for your course or whatever that is. But something I wanted to get to, which I think you're speaking about getting the results for your clients, your customers, the students you get for your courses. You have something you call hybrid courses, right? I don't know if that's something you coined, Danny, but you can maybe speak to that a little bit and maybe explain how you would possibly outline something like that with the help of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So hybrid just means you're mixing and matching all the best tools,
Yeah.
right? It's not all the way to one side or the other. So, a course can be completely pre-recorded or delivered completely live, or it can be a hybrid. It can be a mix of both, right? You can have something that's completely self-study on one end, or someone is there holding your hand every step of the way on the other, or it's hybrid. It's somewhere in the middle. So you think about all these dimensions and you say, well, I've got these sliders. I'll slide this one up. I'll slide this one down. I'll slide this one the other one to find what is the configuration that creates the best outcome for the student and also the best outcome for me in terms of time and energy investment, cost, etc. So it's really optimal for everyone. And that's really what it takes to deliver transformation, right? People have this idea of, oh yeah, I want to create some course, it's a bunch of videos and a membership site. I'll make it once, I'll set it and forget it. I'll make money while I sleep. It's going to spit out like money into my bank account automatically. That doesn't work in real life, right? There's, it's a bit of a tangent, but there's actually a formula that I teach for passive income. And I'm like, it's possible, it's just rare. And the formula is simple. You need a low priced offer. And the reason it has to be low price is that if it's high priced, it's not passive, right? When people spend a lot of money, they expect to get a lot back. And also to sell something expensive, it's not passive. Could be worth it, but it's not passive. So you've got to sell something inexpensive and you've got to sell a large volume.
What is
because
typically inexpensive, depending the niche, of course, or the industry,
it
but
depends on the niche. Let's say
what's usually for you?
100, $200.
Okay, great.
Yeah, less than a couple $100 is inexpensive. So if you have an inexpensive product and you sell a large volume of it, that's passive. It has to be a large volume, because if it's not, then it might be income, but it's not. It might be passive, but it's not meaningful income. But the problem there is that selling a very large volume of a very inexpensive product is hard, because you've got to be able to pay for your marketing. And a rule of thumb is that when you sell a course, roughly the revenue is going to split three ways. About a third is going to go towards fulfillment, about a third is going to be your contribution profit, and about a third is going to go towards customer acquisition. So if you want to get rich selling a $100 ebook, you've got to say, well, a third of that is $33. What can you do for $33 to acquire a customer? And the answer is not much, right? It's very hard. So unless you have an unfair advantage, right? Like the Kylie Cosmetics strategy, right? They went from zero to $1 billion in 5 years with no marketing and 12 people, but they had 150 million followers on social media. That's an unfair advantage, right? A case study that I share is that Barack and Michelle Obama, their most recent books, on day one, they sold a total of 1.6 million copies. And I say it's an easy strategy. It's really simple, rather. It's not easy, it's simple. There are two steps in their strategy for selling 1.6 million books. Step one is spend 8 years in the White House. And step two is publish a book. So it's simple, but it's not easy. They have this unfair advantage.
Right.
And so you can make the passive income thing work if you have an unfair advantage, but most people can't make the math work. And so you've got to charge a premium for your business to work. And guess what? People want to get a real result for a premium. So hybrid works because it creates enough of a result that it's meaningful for people to be willing to spend that.
Yeah, and you do that in you have some products, and I spoke to the affiliate partner manager of yours, and she was telling me a little bit about it, and you have like a unique approach. I was like blown away about how much value you're adding into this, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you typically would include in a hybrid offer, like or a hybrid course. I mean, you can use yours as example, or some of your students, or what you've
Mm-hmm.
seen in the market.
Sure. Well, I can share some of what we do, and I can share examples
Yeah,
of other people that we've trained and that we've seen in the market. But I want to start with how you go about designing it, because
yeah,
there isn't a one size fits all, right? Like, oh, here are the 7 things I do. You just do that, and then you're good. You always want to start with instructional designers call this backward integrated design. It's just beginning with the end in mind, right? The person who signs up for my course, when it's all said and done, what do they want to be able to do, right? What is the skill? And then let's go a couple levels deep. Not just what do I want them to be able to do, but how well do I want them to be able to do it? And under what circumstances? So if I'm teaching a course on active listening, do I want them to be able to do active listening in a simple pretend role play example, or do I want them to be able to do active listening in the middle of a heated argument about a sensitive topic with someone that they care about? Right? Those are different levels of skill. So what do I want them to be able to do? How well and under what circumstances? And I ask myself, well, in order to get them there, what will it take? What are the things they're going to have to learn? What do I have to explain? What will they have to practice? How good do they need to get? And then you can bake a lot into it. So in our flagship program, the Hybrid Course University, we have a set of courses that we take people through from one to the next to the next. Each course involves extensive training. They work one-on-one with a coach who reviews their homework, who answers their questions. We'll set up role plays with their peers in the program. It's super involved and elaborate, but it's also profitable for us because we're tweaking those hybrid levers to give people all the help that they need to succeed, but none of the stuff they don't need that would still cost us money, right? And so that's really where you want to tweak the dials. And the beautiful thing is that the better of a job you do, the more your business grows over time. Because guess what? When someone goes through your course and gets a result, they want to come back and do business with you again. They tell their friends. And so you create this flywheel of success and profitability for everyone.
yeah, Danny. I mean, I heard like the price point was not that crazy, like compared to other offers in the market. So I don't know how, because you have a team and things like that. So this was, I don't know, a few $100s, I believe she told me, as and you offer this much support for this level. Can you tell us a
But
little bit
it's
about
a
how
little
that
more,
works?
it's a little more complicated than that. So
Yeah.
our courses typically retail for $1,000, $2,000. And once a year, we do a big promotion where we offer our flagship program on a pay what you can basis. So you put in a $500 activation fee. And then once you're into the program, you've seen how good it is, you decide the amount that you can pay and you choose a number for 6 payments.
Mm,
And that's what you pay. And that's that. And what we've found doing that, first of all, it just brings a ton of people in the door. They're super enthusiastic and excited to get this opportunity. We found that people are, there's definitely some people who come in and pay the minimum because they feel like they're getting away with something, but most people act with integrity towards the value they're getting and their legitimate means, which is totally fine. I understand. I don't know about you. I've definitely been in places in my life at different times when part of why I was able to get ahead is because someone took a chance on me when they didn't have to. And, because they are invested and because they do the work and they get the support, they launch their programs, they start earning money, they go into other programs of ours and other coaching and so forth because it works.
yeah. No, it's I mean it's awesome. I like this model actually. I think more people should do it because it's getting creating also a result, and also like what you shared about how AI plays a role in this. You can use it to as an assistant to actually
Mhm.
get more work done. But I don't know how you see like AI shaping the course industry. If something is happening, is it more challenging now because you are doing a lot of launches? Do you feel it's more challenging to get the sales, to get the customer, or what do you feel as a course creator and also someone who sees a lot of courses behind the scenes?
Well, sales have always been fundamentally about trust,
Hmm.
and AI is definitely eroding a lot of trust. Like, how you go to a website, you fill out a form, and you get this little pop-up, "Are you human?" Right? So in the same way, when something informational is being offered, people have this question in the back of their minds, did AI write this? And when you have that wondering, it's not with oh, cool, I wonder if AI wrote this. No, it's like, oh, is this going to be some garbage that AI wrote? Right? It's like it's skeptical. It lowers their expectation of value.
Hmm.
And so what that means is that selling information is getting harder and harder, especially if you don't have the reputation and credibility to back it up. But when you offer a course that is hybrid and you're explicit about, look, it includes this support and you're going to work with a coach and these are the results we guarantee, all that kind of stuff, then it becomes more differentiated from all the stuff that is out there. So the market is kind of splitting. Selling just information has been getting harder for years, but it's now much harder because of AI. Selling
Yeah.
transformation that you legitimately deliver and that the mechanisms are there and people can see it and you stand behind your promises is not getting harder. If anything, it's getting easier because it stands out more.
Yeah, it's a differentiator in this market, for sure. Like to offer some level of support when you see a lot of people just having information. But I do think, depending on the audience, if you have a massive audience, it's easier, of course, with the reputation to sell information. They don't offer as much coaching and things like that. I mean, I'm sure you could do it, but you want to deliver a result to your clients, and that's why this works well. And also it stands out in this kind of coaching industry, the creator economy
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But let's get into a little bit how I guess you guys use AI in your business in the day to day as well. Like, and I'm sure you use it a lot for delivering results for your clients too, and doing things more efficiently in your business.
Yeah, so I want to really like lean into this. This is really important. Every time you do a launch, every time you enroll a cohort into your program, you're going to have a whole bunch of people go through your program and either get a result or not. And so every time, every year, every cycle, you're either increasing the number of people out in the world who say, Danny's course is great. It works. It gets results. Navid's course is amazing. It helps people. Or you're increasing the number of people in the world who say, yeah, I bought it. It didn't really work for me. I mean, there's some good information, but you get stuck in it. That's in the long run, that's the kiss of death for a business. And yeah, you can have the reputation and credibility and reach and all that kind of stuff to get away with it in air quotes for a little longer, but it's still not good for your business. There's no business in the world that it's good for them to have more and more people who think their product sucks Like that's just not good for business.
I just have a question regarding this. What do you think about these learning platforms like Skillshare, Udemy, and things like that? Because they're arguably a lot of people get stuck there or they don't get any results because it's they devalue a lot of the courses and things like that. There might be some good stuff there. I've actually taken courses on Skillshare. You can get some valuable things, for learning something like a creative skill or something. But I'm just interested to hear your take on this and kind of what you think
Well,
about.
it's an information versus education
Mhm.
divide,
Yeah,
right? There's a place for information, but it's not worth very much. So if you think about a platform like Skillshare, like Udemy, what does a course there cost?
yeah, very cheap.
List price is 100, $200. Usually it's like 90% off. It's like 10, 20, $30. It basically costs like a book in a bookstore, which is an information product, right? You go to a bookstore, you find the book that purports to have the information you want, you take it to the register, you pay for it, not very much because information is cheap. Then you
Yeah.
walk out of there and you're on your own, right? Nobody owes you anything. The bookstore owner, the publisher, the author, they don't owe you anything. You got the book, you got the information. What you do with it is on you. Education is different. It's a partnership between teacher and student. And yes, you have to do the work, but the expectation is that if I do the work, the teacher is going to be there to help me succeed. And that's what is worth paying a premium for. So it's not about do I like them or do I not like them. It's about let's just recognize what they are. It's a
Mhm.
marketplace for video based information.
But I do think a lot of experts are doing the same sometimes. They're selling like, could be even a few $100s and they're selling it like as information. So it's
Right.
I
But
guess it's pretty
no
similar.
longevity to that model.
Yeah. That's what I would say as well. I mean, I think that model doesn't work as well because you might not get results for your students. Like always when we did
Mhm.
Virtual Summit Mastery, we always had templates, something I recognized pretty early. And now I know a lot of people selling templates and things like that. But we always gave students like fill in the blank templates, like everything they need to host a virtual summit the right way. And that's, even though for every launch we didn't have, live Q&As, they still got all that and they basically implemented because they had all
Mhm.
the done for you resources. And I think now in the age of AI, something I see is that you can actually have, mini tools or something like that, micro apps, whatever you want to call it, and integrate that with your system and your IP or whatever you want to call it. Like you have that
Mhm.
built in, on the top of, let's say, OpenAI's API. I'm not sure if you are working on something like that for your students as well, but like, for example, having your process so they answer a few questions. They don't even need to go to ChatGPT and, doing all these prompts and stuff like that. Is that something you're seeing as well with what you are doing and also in the other courses you consult and see?
It's a direction I see a lot of people talking about.
Mm,
And like there are a lot of trends. A couple of years ago it was gamification. It was like all the rage and it's like, oh, you should gamify everything. And
yeah.
I was always like, not really. I mean, it has a place for it, but you want to understand what it's actually good for, right? So to use gamification, and we'll circle back to AI, but gamification fundamentally is a tool of motivation, right? It makes you more motivated to take the next step. Now, what is motivation good for? Motivation empowers you to do to the best of your ability what you're already capable of doing. Motivation doesn't empower you to do something that you're not capable of doing, right? If I hold this book up here and I hold it like this and it's like super blurry, and I say, Navid, can you read the fine print on the bottom? You say no. And I say, what if I give you $1,000? Now can you read it? It's like, well, no, because motivation doesn't change your ability to see things,
If I really needed $1,000, I'll try. I'll try, Danny. I'll do it. But yeah,
right? And so if the issue is I'm giving people a task and it's really easy and they're just not doing it, motivation might help. Gamifying it might help. If I'm asking them to do something that is hard and I'm not giving them good instructions, then motivating them isn't going to make a difference. So, in the same way with AI, there are some tasks that we ask people to do that are hard. Like, not everybody is a writer, right? Taking your expertise and turning it into a lesson following this format, that's a steep learning curve for some people. AI can help with that, right? So, using AI for the things that would be hard for someone to learn how to do, that makes a lot of sense. But there's also a lot of places where it's a little bit gimmicky, right? I work with a lot of course creators. I also have several software companies and I advise software companies as well. And a lot of them are like, everyone wants to see it includes AI. And so there's kind of two tracks of questions. There's the what's some really valuable stuff that we can do with AI? And then there's also like what's a few gimmicky things we can do with AI so we could just say that it has AI. And so you want to distinguish those things. It's like you could build the bots, but the reality is that most people, like essentially, how much value would that add over them going to ChatGPT and typing it in themselves? And if it's not much, then you only win in the long term in business by doing something that other people can't do.
Yeah.
And so if you're an AI company, then create a really cool bot that nobody else can create. Okay, awesome. But if you're a courses company, yeah, you could create a bot, you could throw something together, it could sit on top of OpenAI, but your bot isn't going to be any better than anybody else's bot. Focus on your expertise, which is what makes your course unique and special. Focus on your unique insights,
Yeah,
is the way
when
I
I
would
when I
approach it.
when I create courses, I like to include some level of implementation. I mean,
Mhm.
the coaching is one thing if people get stuck. Of course, that can still happen even if you include that. But I'm always thinking, how can they implement this stuff faster?
Mhm.
Maybe I have done it, so I can give them what I've done and basically
Yeah.
make that in a
Yeah,
student
100%.
format. I think that that's stuff I like, and I see some big names. They don't always do that. Like I think they ride a wave on their name a lot of the times. They might have a great course by all means, but they don't provide, templates. They could like easily throw in like their sales page templates or whatever they are selling if it's in the marketing niche, for example. They don't always do that. They just have they just have a course, the modules. Maybe they have some live Q&As and things like that. But that's usually it. I see, to be honest, in most cases at least.
Well, there's something called the bicycle shed problem, which is the idea goes that if I tell you, Navid, I'm thinking about building a nuclear reactor in my backyard, you're going to be like, I mean, okay, that's weird, but I don't have any advice for you. I don't know anything about building nuclear reactors. But if I tell you, Navid, I'm thinking about building a bicycle shed, you may not have any expertise with bicycle sheds either, but they seem simple enough that everyone has an opinion. Oh, you should do this with it. You should, and like people who don't know. And the fact that you kind of have some awareness around it doesn't make you an expert. I like to joke, I turn on a lot of light bulbs. That doesn't make me an electrician. And people think, well, I've been around online courses, I've seen online courses. Oh, I know what online courses should look like. But just the fact that you've seen a bunch of courses doesn't make you an expert really on courses. And a lot of the people who are creating courses, they haven't really done the work to understand what is it going to take to deliver transformation. And you see this especially with people who have really big names and reaches, because frankly, they don't have to try as hard, right? If nobody knows who you are and you want to get someone to give you their hard-earned money for your course, you've got to make sure it's good. If you have this reputation and celebrity, you kind of know there's a lot of people who are going to buy it from you no matter how much it sucks, right? So not that you want to put something out that sucks, but you just don't have that same pressure to make it great.
Yeah, and we don't need to mention any names, but there's a lot of people doing that.
Yep.
But I wanted to get into like we already talked about some use cases for AI and the way you use it as an assistant, but like in what components? Let's say, I mean, we start with the creating part. I guess that would be useful for the outlining, for the things how to serve your clients, your students in the course, but also like in the I would say like in the launch process, it can be really useful. I mean, for there's a lot of things that goes into that which we can talk about a
Mhm.
little bit, and that's where I guess some prompting comes in.
But
So maybe you can speak to that
it
in
goes
your
even further
launch
back.
process.
It goes even further back. Like you really,
Yeah,
if you think about all the steps in the process,
yeah,
you can use AI to make them easier. So the
yeah,
first step is figuring out what should you even teach about?
mm,
Who is the market you're going to serve, right? So it can be really valuable to say, I mean, you think you know what your expertise is, you think you know who's the market for it, but if you say, I'm an expert on this and this and this, I'm thinking about creating a course on a topic related to this. What are some different markets that might be interested in this? Right. And you see, well, what might I be missing? Now it's not necessarily correct, but it gives you directions to start exploring. Okay, I think I'll go with this market. What kind of messaging do you think would be resonant with this market? And of course, we're illustrating with really simple prompts, but better prompts are much more involved and detailed, right? So you can go all the way through that, through, yeah, for sure. We can do, let's map out sales material. Let's map out video scripts for marketing. Let's map out what kind of questions are people likely to ask and what objections are they likely to have? How might I address those objections in my sales material, right? You can use AI in your customer support, right? It can be anywhere from, here's the customer's email. I want to respond, pointing them to think about this and this and this, draft a response, to, you get an angry email from a customer, from a prospect, and you think they're way off base, and it stresses you out and it pisses you off. So you draft a response, then you read it, and you're like, you know what? Copy paste into ChatGPT. ChatGPT, can you rewrite this to be less passive aggressive? Right? And it works. It can do that, right? So it can really be helpful at all of those steps.
It's really good at actually taking if I took, let's say I wanted to write in your style, I will take, let's say I take an email from Mirasee and I say,
Mhm.
ChatGPT, I want to break down the structure of a Mirasee email. It does really well with these type of things
Mhm.
actually, and I've tested this multiple times for social media posts and everything and blog posts. This stuff is really good at, and I like I like this, and I like something else you said about customer support, because that's something that can save a lot of time. But I think something else that is interesting, maybe that's also into the future a little bit, but that's, you can already upload knowledge bases and things like that, where you can have, like,
Mhm.
let's say your team wanted access to you, but you're really busy during your launch. They could upload your knowledge into, like, you have a little chat with Danny, and you don't need to reply to them. You can do the same for your customers. There's platforms like this. You can also use, I guess, the new GPTs
Well,
that are coming
I
out.
would be
There's a lot of
I would
stuff.
be careful. So again, remember the criteria.
Yeah.
Don't ask it to do something that you if you're not in a position to check the work. So if I know the answer to the customer, but I have it draft the answer and I tweak it, I can do that. If the person who works for me doesn't know the answer, it would be dangerous for them to say, what would Danny answer to this? And just send it to the customer without checking with Danny, hey, is this right?
But what do you think about, let's say you have a set of, you have a lot of content you have creating online for such a long time, you have so many books, right? So let's say uploading all these hundreds and hundreds, maybe it's
Mhm.
probably thousands of pages, then it's
Yeah,
like
tens
control.
of thousands.
It's a controlled environment. Let's say you can. There's different tools like it. I know Search, you can
Mhm.
do that. There's some other tools as well that you can upload knowledge bases.
Mhm.
Even Keymate within ChatGPT, you can upload directly into ChatGPT as well to some extent. But
Yep.
I would probably be careful with Chat, because I like a controlled environment when it's like paid content, right, or something you wanna. I don't want to like
Mhm.
I don't want the model to learn about it. So that's why I like the control environment. So what do you think about that? I think that's also interesting when you come into maybe in the future to avatars and like answering people's questions, because you
Mhm.
cannot work 24/7, but you could potentially give advice to your students on a more ongoing basis if you had like this, and it's actually your real answers, so it's not something they make up. So I'm interested
Well,
to hear
but
your
that's the thing.
take.
It's not your real answers.
Hmm.
That's the really dangerous part, right? It's not searching and retrieving how did Danny answer this question.
Hmm.
It's saying, based on all this writing, statistically speaking, what will Danny's answer probably sound like? And so it'll be right a lot of the time, but it'll be wrong a little bit of the time. Now, if it's guidance from my coaches who can look at it and be like, this one doesn't look quite right, I'm going to change it, that's fine. If it's even given to the student with really clear, this is not Danny, this is Danny bot, it's an approximation of what Danny would say, but use your own judgment, it's like really clear,
Hmm.
then maybe. But you want to be really careful about using AI to give an answer to someone who is not in a position to evaluate whether it's a good answer or not. Think of it this way. Let's say that it is right 98% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good hit rate, right? But now let's say that I've got how many students in my course? Let's say 100, small course,
Yeah.
and 100 students ask what, 5 questions a month each,
Yeah.
something like that. So 500 questions a month, 98% hit rates. That means in a month, it's giving 10 bad answers. In a year, it's giving 120 bad answers. So it feels like an edge case, but actually that can be quite destructive. And it also depends what you're helping people with, right? If your course is about people's health, your margin of error with good answers is very different than if you're helping them with, I don't know, knitting, where the worst thing that can happen is you ruin a sweat. Right? If I'm giving business advice and people are taking actions that could cost them tens of thousands of dollars, I've got to be very careful. So those margins of error become really important.
That's very interesting. I see like different takes on this, but I'm really it's interesting to hear like about kind of, you need to at some end you need to, embrace the future, and and try different things. But I mean, I even seen courses that are created with like these AI avatars, and they are pretty monotone. But I guess the information is, they just gave it a script, and but it's, you can tell it's like kind of an avatar because you don't have like the emotion there and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So. I think I wouldn't probably like these type of courses, but if you just want the information and maybe they have a community behind it, that's great, but let's get back to like how you have a launch, I think, coming up next year. So how, if you're leading into that, how would you and Mirasee use AI to do that? Like, I mean, do you do that for your emails? In what spectrum do you use AI for a big launch like that?
Well, if you're using AI well, it's invisible to the end user. I mean, I just published this book, and it's about courses and AI. AI is in the topic, and so we had a bunch of people who are like, "Did you use AI to write this?" And I've generally avoided answering the question because I think it gives people the right. Like, I mean, for the record, we didn't. We wrote it ourselves with a little bit of input from AI here and there, other than the stuff where it's like examples of prompts and responses, obviously.
Mm.
But nobody asks, did you use Microsoft Word to write this? Right? It's just a tool. Like, who cares what word processor I used? If you're using it well, it should be like that, right? If you're using it badly, then it matters a lot that AI wrote this, right? But if you're using it well, it should be invisible. So how are we using AI? We probably, if you look at all the steps, we might say, here's the market we're going after. What are some big ideas that will be resonant and compelling? Right? Here's an email that I wrote. What are some good headlines or subject lines for this email?
Yeah.
Um, like literally every step along the way, you can use it as an idea partner, as a thought partner, as a drafting partner. You can get faster at doing all the pieces.
Yeah.
We
No,
also want to
Just
recognize
just
that.
one thing on that, like for the affiliate swipe and the tedious tasks for a launch, I think it can be really useful. Not to maybe write the entire thing, but you probably have a lot of swipe copy, a lot of emails from previous launches. So you can probably take that to ChatGPT and tell, okay, I want similar emails, like in this style, but slightly different, so it's not the same as last year or something like this. I don't know
Mhm.
if that's something you use it for, Danny.
It's something we've experimented with. We haven't found it to be very good at
Okay.
doing that. Like it produces solid, very generic copy. And something that we have to be mindful of is that when you have a new technology emerge and you're the first one using it, you have an advantage. But as it becomes ubiquitous, it's not an advantage anymore. It's just table stakes, and it kind of becomes a tax, right? For a lot of companies, running ads on Facebook, running ads on Google, it's not an advantage. Everybody does it. It's a tax for the success of their business, right? I think I read a stat somewhere that if you look at all the money that is invested by venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, about 30% of it goes to pay for ads for on Google and on Facebook. So it's just basically it's become a tax on the industry. Now, what this means for us is that if we're just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, then we kind of fade into the background and we don't stand out. So you want to use it in all the ways that is invisible, but you want to make sure you're still leveraging what is uniquely you to stand out and to resonate. Because I mean, let's fast forward the plate. I mean, you can have it script a video, and you can even put an avatar, and you can have it throw in some music, and it's easy. And so in the next year or two, we're going to see a lot of people running launches with fairly generic AI generated videos. And people are smart. People have kind of an intuitive pattern recognition that they like, when you look at something and you're like, I can't quite put my finger on why, but I don't think a human wrote this,
Yeah.
right? You learn to start like, I think I don't need to pay so much attention to this.
You
And,
know,
and we have to be really careful of that. Like in the short term, we save time. In the medium term, we
mhm.
lose the trust of our audience.
I mean, it's interesting. I think something it could be. I maybe in this spectrum you would actually do it, because I don't know. Do you speak a foreign language, Danny, or like Spanish or something like that?
I speak English, Hebrew, and French with different degrees of fluency.
Okay, but let's say, I mean, you don't have Mirasee in these languages, right? I don't think so.
We
You only
don't.
have it.
That's right.
Yeah. So in this case, could probably be cool, because you're not right now. You're only reaching the English-speaking market, which is primarily U.S., but UK,
Mhm.
Australia, Canada, and things like that. Imagine you could actually have an avatar of you, or you can like dub, not dub this, but you can actually have your lips synced and everything. So you have an
Yeah,
avatar but
big
speaking Spanish,
podcasts are
and that
starting
that
to
is
do that.
possible. I don't know if that's something you would consider doing to reach more people, to actually have your material translated into so many more languages, and that's already here, but it's got to be more cost effective in the future.
So It depends. It's something that's come up on my team. People have asked about it. I mean, something that like major podcasts, they're already doing it. Like you can
Yeah,
get major shows in other languages and it's done
sure.
by AI. My thinking is that you want to look at the whole picture. So if I take my course and I have AI translate it into Spanish, well, first of all, like you need the support along with the course. So going through the videos in Spanish, but then getting the support in English, that might not work. But let's pretend that like, I could completely replicate the course in Spanish, in Arabic, in Mandarin. But that doesn't mean I know how to reach a market in Spanish. That doesn't mean I understand the I mean, each market is different. They have different sensitivities, right? So if I were to say I want to go into the Spanish market, would I use this to save me a whole bunch of time? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I? I'd be stupid not to. But I wouldn't just skip to, oh, ChatGPT can easily translate my course into Spanish. I'll do that and just expect I'll make a ton of sales in Spanish. It's not going to happen that easily, right? You still need to have the strategy for going into the market.
Yeah, no, I completely
There-
agree. I mean, I've seen people licensing their courses, but that's why I asked about this. Like,
Mhm.
I think Jeff Walker is a great example. He licensed his program, product launch formula to Brazil, I believe, and they're, doing really well there. So
I
because
think in
that
Russia
person,
also.
that person knew how to, run it in the
Exactly.
Brazilian market, and Jeff Walker probably doesn't have the biggest Brazilian audience, whatever. So
Mhm.
it's easier that way. So I do see you have a
Exactly.
point, because if you had a lot of requests, that's another thing. If you had requests from Spanish speakers who find your YouTube videos, but let's say you had a big audience there and they coming and they don't
Bingo.
understand,
Yeah.
that is a different
Then you
way.
can go after the market because you see the demand is there.
Exactly. Yeah.
A way of thinking about this that I find helpful is that, if you're going to a friend who's 20 minutes away, you budget 20 minutes to go there. If you're going to a store that's 10 minutes away, you budget 10 minutes to go there. But there's a distance where it becomes close enough that in your head you're like, it just takes zero time to go there, right? Like my mom, a couple of years ago, the house came on the market. We bought a house across the street. She's literally across the street. So in my head, it takes zero time to go there. But I mean, it's not zero time. I have to put on my shoes. I have to go out of the house. It still takes a couple minutes. And so, whereas I'm never late going somewhere 10 minutes, 20 minutes away, going across the street for dinner at my mom's, I'm often a minute or two late because in my head, it takes zero time. And that's the risk with ChatGPT. And AI more broadly. People are like, it's so easy. It's not less, it's zero, right? It's like it's not that it'll be some work, but it'll be more efficient. In their head, it's like, oh, it's just I'll snap my fingers and it'll be done. And it's not that simple.
Yeah, no, something I wanted to touch upon here as well is that now in the age of AI, we see, and we mentioned it before, a lot of companies, even though they are not like an AI first company, I mean, they are mentioning AI a lot on the in the marketing. You guys do it.
Mhm.
I mean, you talk about it as well in your products now. But if you are maybe not in this field, would you recommend actually putting an AI spin to what you're doing to actually integrate that in your course or whatever that is you're offering? Is that something you would recommend? I don't know what you talk to your students about in this way.
It depends. It depends on the relevance and it depends on the impact.
Mm,
So on the impact side, if you were to do that, how much better would your course be?
mm,
Would it be materially different? And on the relevant side, is it something your audience is looking for? Is it something that is important to them? So if you have a strong yes to either of those questions, then that's a good argument for doing it. If you don't have a strong yes to either of them, then I wouldn't.
yeah, no. I mean, when you guys talked about it, I mean, you could have probably, I mean, I could you have left it out and still did well?
No, I
What
don't
do you
think
think?
so. I think, especially given the timing, we have our big launch every year in May.
Yeah,
Everything with ChatGPT was getting crazy in February or March. It's like if we had just ignored it, we would have just looked out of touch, right? We would have done our big launch and we would have gotten the number one question would have been, what about AI? And so we didn't really have a choice. And it was a wave. It was like now it's kind of fading more into the background. Next year with our launch, I mean, we'll have AI tools built in and guide, but the launch is not going to be focused on AI.
right. I mean, I think like with certain things that's coming and going, I think AI is not like a fad. Like it's like here to stay. It's been
Oh,
around for
for
a
sure.
long time.
It's
It's
not
just
going
now.
away,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's not kind of in the peak of people's awareness. It's kind of like if you were doing a launch in April or May of 2020, you couldn't not talk about COVID,
Same thing.
right? 22, it's like COVID was still there, but like you don't, people, it doesn't occupy the same space in people's awareness.
Yeah. No, this is interesting how this plays a role. But yeah, I think it's, I mean, there's like, as I've seen lists of 6,000 AI tools and things like that, which is kind of, most of them are useless. I think a lot of them will go out of business because they're just building on top of the OpenAI's API and they
Mhm.
don't have like a real use case. But do you use any, I mean, speak to courses in general. I mean, using ChatGPT, we talked about it. Do you use any other tools and things that could be useful to people, maybe in your business, Mirasee, and or what you recommend your students?
I'm very bearish on the tools. I think people should understand how they work and recognize that, like, again, understanding the technology, what drives these tools is the large language model that it sits on top of. And there just aren't very many of those because it costs like billions of dollars to create one of those. So there is OpenAI's ChatGPT. Google has Bard. There's Anthropic. There's Inflection AI. There's a handful, but that's it. And then all the tools build on one of those. And so if you really understand how to use it, like, if you think about any like a copywriting AI tool, all they're doing, you say, I don't know, write me a sales letter for my yoga service. And what they're doing is they're taking that same prompt, maybe adding a paragraph of instructions and asking the same thing of ChatGPT. Now, maybe that's worthwhile. I'm not saying it doesn't add value, but the important thing is, like, you get good at asking good prompts and then test. Do you prefer going straight to ChatGPT or going to Claude or going to Pi or going to, I don't know, copy.ai or Jasper or whatever? But the tools come and go. It's the skills of using the AI that's really important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. As we wrap this one up, I just wanted to ask you, I think, two more questions. What's your number one tip or advice for someone to get into this world of AI, implement this in their business, and of course, using it for online courses in the right way, as we've discussed during this session?
It's amazing to me now, like a year in, how many people I talk to who are still like, I've never used AI. I've never played with it. It's like, open a free account, spend 10 minutes a day playing with it. Right? The barrier to entry is super low. It's part of why this has blown up so fast. You don't have to learn computer code. You just ask it in English or whatever language you speak. Right? It's programming in pro. So just start playing with it and get familiar with what it can do. Right? Feel out the edges of what it's capable of. Right? Ask it a question. If you ask the question differently, how is the answer different? Just get comfortable, develop a literacy.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And as a final question, was there any question you wanted me to ask, but I didn't? Or do you have any other final words of wisdom here?
I don't have questions that I thought you should ask because you were great. You asked a ton of questions. We had a really great, involved conversation, which I'm grateful for. I mean, in terms of advice, I would just encourage everyone to really lean into what they can bring that is unique, right? What AI is doing, if you look at the landscape level, it is starching out what is generic about what everybody does. So, you're not going to be successful doing what lots of other people can do, because if lots of other people can do it, then it's on the internet, then ChatGPT can do it too. It's a race to the bottom. But focus on your unique insights and experience and expertise, and that's the gold mine.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I will link up some resources we talked about, and Mirasee, of course, go check it out. They have some great content there about online courses and doing this the right way, whereas a lot of people are doing it the wrong way. Definitely, Danny has been around for a long time, and I like his content and what he's up to. So really, thank you for coming on here, Danny, and sharing so much value with everyone. And if you have any takeaways and watching this or listening in, leave it in the comments below. Maybe something you're thinking of for creating your courses leveraging AI. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Bye.